Husker Nation, did Nebraska football ceiling just get higher? Did the floor get lower? The offense looked efficient. We completed 86% of our passes. We ran the ball 72% of the time. The offense looked explosive. Can we consistently do that going forward? Penn State's going to have film. Defensively, what do we need to work on defensively? We did enough to win the game versus UCLA, the bad boys from Bruinville, that is. But what do we got to work on going forward when you're going to play teams like Penn State, Iowa? They got film on us. They want to run the ball. I do something I don't do often enough, but man, when I do it, I really enjoy it. I bust out the whiteboard and we dive into the X's and O's. Ladies and gentlemen, let's have some fun. Welcome to the Carriker Chronicles, the People Show. The corn head fell already. It's a new tradition on the show. This show is brought to you by DPS Concrete Construction. Check them out at dpsconstruction.net. Also, carrikerchronicles.com. It's where all your Husker sports hopes and dreams will come true, ladies and gentlemen. It's just almost a scientific fact. All right, if you're born from the corn like me, or if you just feel better about Nebraska winning at least 8, possibly 9 games this year, but at least 8 games. You feel better about them achieving that goal. Smash the like button. As always, if you haven't done so yet, make sure you subscribe and or ring that notification bell. If you want to see more X's and O's being done on a program that you're watching, we're going to try to do more of that here. Make sure you subscribe, ring that notification bell if you want unbridled honesty and passion as well. Also, unique interviews. Ja'Cory Barney, Emmett Johnson, Isaiah Hunter, Luke Lindenmeyer, Bill Bush, Matt Rhule, Tom Osborne, Amon Green, Grant Wisham, Levante David, and so much more. All that name dropping is exhausting. Anyways, I digress. Make sure you subscribe. Don't miss any of the stuff we're doing here on the Carriker Chronicles. Now, the question is, Nebraska Ceiling, is it higher for the rest of the season? You look at what we did offensively. It wasn't just what TJ Lateef did with his feet, the bind that he puts defenses in, which we're going to talk about that from an X's and O's standpoint here in just a minute. But the efficiency, he completed 87% of his passes. Also, we had multiple big plays on the day. He threw for 205 yards passing. That's 16 yards per completion. Now, a lot of that was yards after catch, yards after contact, yards after catch, all right, via Emmett Johnson, some of the other guys as well, Dane Key. But part of that was the defense was on their heels. We didn't have to throw unless we wanted to. He'd only thrown 10 passes going into the fourth quarter period. He was 10 of 10. Now, by the end of the game, we had ran the ball 72% of the time, which meant we only passed it 28% of the time, which meant we were dictating to the defense what we wanted to do and not allowing them to sit back and pin their ears back on us. And then you add in, and he was already completing 84% of his passes coming into this game, by the way, Houston Christian, Akron, USC, and the like. And then you add in the extra dimension that TJ Lateef has with his feet. Now, I got to say this right out the gate because somebody's going to get upset. Why are we taking shots at Dylan Raiola? Nobody's taking shots at Dylan Raiola. Speedy recovery. There's a reason he was our starting quarterback. Nothing but love for the guy. But when you look at the rest of the season and the guys who are playing, that's what this video is about. Okay? Does our ceiling get higher than we had originally thought going into the UCLA game or not? Let's chat, shall we? So, couple of things real quick. Here are some things that I found were very, very interesting. All right, TJ talked about Dylan after an incredible performance in his debut. That's culture, man, culture. That's the Coach Rhule difference right there. These guys got nothing but love for each other. You look at Emmett Johnson, 32 touches, 129 rush yards, 103 receiving yards, and 3 touchdowns. He's the only FBS player this season with 100 rushing and receiving yards in the same game. 100 rushing, 100 receiving yards. All right, Emmett is also, since at least 1995, now the first Big Ten player in a single game to record 125 rush yards, a rushing touchdown, 100 receiving yards, and 2 receiving touchdowns. All-purpose, everything right there. This was entering Week 11, before the UCLA game. Emmett Johnson led the Big Ten in both rush yards and all-purpose yards. And then Michael Sevier said, tonight, he tweeted this out after the UCLA game, tonight's game marks the first time in school history a Nebraska running back has had 100 rushing yards and 100 receiving yards in the same game. And sometimes photos do say it all. Look at that cheerleader's face at UCLA, just all of them actually, if you look at all of them. I loved Emmett striking the Heisman pose, but my favorite part was the linemen getting in on it with them. They deserve some love as well. Barstool, UCLA's own account, said it's 11 UCLA defenders versus 1 Emmett Johnson, and Emmett Johnson is winning. When you look at TJ Lateef, in his first career start, 13 of 15 completions, 205 yards, 3 touchdowns, 31 rush yards. Lateef is the only true freshman in FBS history since at least 95 to have a game with a minimum of 15 attempts where he had 200 plus pass yards, 3 plus passing touchdowns, 2 or fewer incompletions. That's crazy, and 30 plus rush yards in the same game. Now we can continue to talk about, I mean, he had a QBR of 324 and all of his stats if we'd like. I did think this was a cool moment. his teammates basically have him body surfing in the locker room. They kind of lifted him up, had him body surfing in the locker room. What a welcome home. But this is where I want to get into the X's and O's, because Matt Rhule said, and I quote, "We're like some of the streets in Lincoln. We're under construction," end quote. Unlike the streets in Lincoln, well, you never stop building a program, but I do hope we actually end some of the construction. Much love to the construction workers out there. Let's dive into the X's and O's of some of these things now at this point. So again, I just want to reiterate, Dylan was a starter for a reason, but TJ obviously brings a unique skill set to the table, and he puts a defense in a unique bind, and that's what I want to talk about at this point. We're going to talk about the read option. So you look up front, by the way, love my quarterback, running back. You see why I once didn't get a great grade in art, but you understand what I'm saying. The square is the center. So without diving into too much on the left side of the line here and the types of blocks that they can do, if it's a read option and the quarterback has the running back going in front of him, there's certain things the offense will do to try to create extra blockers to the play side. They can pull a tackle. Okay, they can go counter mode and pull a guard and a tackle. And then they can have a kick out block. These guys can block down. You can have a kick out block and then the puller going through the hole. There's all sorts of different things that you can do. As an offense, you can simply go play side, okay, zone blocking. So everyone's blocking head up to play side if it's a zone left. Bottom line, all these send this end free. Now this quarterback on the read option, as he's handing off to the running back, he's reading the end. Now the end, if he goes flat down the line, which just about every defense I ever played in, that's what you do, the quarterback is going to keep the ball and head outside. The end's responsibility is the running back in this scenario, flat down the line, then the quarterback would keep it. Now, if the end were to go upfield, let's say they pull the tackle or everyone's zone blocks this way, whatever they're doing, they're setting the end free because he's the read part of the read option. He goes straight upfield. You'd have to have a specialty blitz on or be in a different defense than I'm used to playing, but there are defenses that do this. That's when you hand the ball off to the running back because the end would then take the quarterback, and they'd better have some sort of a blitzer from a linebacker up the middle to take the running back or something like that, because if they don't, then the running back's got an extra blocker, and now the end has not taken the running back, and this is where the read option can become a problem. This is where you can put defenses in a bind. So again, let's say they send the end free, however they do that, pulling a tackle, pulling guard tackle, turning it into counter action. It can be a counter read, okay? It can be zone, it can be any of those things. The end is set free. Let's say he goes down the line with the running back the way he should. The quarterback keeps it. Now what happens is your outside edge defender, your linebacker, the second level defender, depending on what the defense is, let's say it's 4-3, okay, four defensive linemen, 3 linebackers, he now has to tackle this quarterback in space. That's a lot of space because you got to keep in mind all these guys are going this way, going with the running back, the blocking, the end, the running back. This is a lot of space one-on-one with TJ Lateef and a linebacker. That's a difficult tackle to make. So what happens, if the end's going flat the way he should with the running back, this linebacker wants to do and I talked about this in my gut reaction, they want to get downhill as fast as humanly possible and try to close the gap. Otherwise, you're meeting TJ Lateef or the quarterback 4 to 5 yards, because most of these guys are lined up 4 to 5 yards off the ball. And first of all, he's made 3 to 4 to 5 yards in the rush already before he ever meets you. And that's if you make the tackle. And then what if it takes you a couple yards to tackle him, okay? So you want to get downhill as quick as you can. So hopefully you can tackle him for a loss, no gain, or whatsoever. And that's where the RPO action comes in. It puts the defense in an incredible bind, this read option. And that's before you even put in the RPO aspect of this, run pass option aspect of this, which I want to talk about in a second. Before I do, I want to give a shout out to our sponsors, DPS Concrete Construction. Check them out at dpsconstruction.net. Ladies and gentlemen, they are your local retaining wall and concrete work experts. Nobody does it better. This is the type of work you want done. Check them out at dpsconstruction.net. If this type of work you do, they're the guys you want to work for. Jason Armstrong's the boss you want. Go to dpsconstruction.net. Also, shout out to Husker Auto Group. They do a phenomenal job. Husker, Chevrolet, and GMC have aggressive pricing in 2025 model Silverados and Sierras up to $11,000 off MSRP. APR as low as 2.9% financing with approved credit. See dealer for details. Husker, Chevrolet, and GMC also has a great selection of 3/4-ton Silverado and Sierra trucks. Husker, Chevrolet, and GMC is locally owned and operated. Husker Auto Group is conveniently located off North 27th Street and I-80 in North Lincoln, also available 24/7 at HuskerAutoGroup.com. So just to briefly recap, they're setting the end free here. If he doesn't go down the line, you give it to the back. You've got extra blockers because either you pulled the offensive tackle, you turned it into counteraction, or everyone's zone blocking this way. And you're setting this guy free so you can have extra blockers here, however you choose to block it, and you've got issues as a defense. If the defensive end does go down the line with the running back, the quarterback pulls it, and this linebacker, if he's playing just base, man, he's got a lot of space, and he's got to close that gap. Otherwise, you got problems and a lot of space with an athletic quarterback. So what happens is to put defenses in even more of a bind, because that's always fun, you've got the RPO aspect of this. So you got a wide receiver. Again, check out the art. You send the end free. Now this linebacker, if he's in a typical hook, he's got the zone right here, hook zone right here. You got the flats out here. So this is kind of the flat zone. If it's a cover 3, you got your 3 deep guys here in the middle of the field. You got your 2 hook players. You got your 2 flat players. So it's 4 across here. It's 3 deep. And then you got your 4 defensive linemen right here, depending on how they're aligned. Okay, so now what happens, that linebacker tries to close the gap. The defensive end goes down the line. The quarterback keeps the ball. He tries to get downhill and close the gap. Well, that quarterback, this receiver just does a little slant route. Boom, the linebacker's gone. You dunk it over the top. It puts the defense, if the quarterback can make the proper read, almost in a no-win situation. Now, the defense can do certain things to try to mess with the quarterback here. So one thing you can do as a defense is you can stunt inside, in which case you still have the running back. You can blitz the linebacker off the edge, so he's no longer in coverage. He can now take the quarterback, and this wide receiver, depending on what your coverage is, I mean, maybe you got a strong safety because you're blitzing, he takes him man to man. So that's one way to try to cover it. If it's some sort of zone, maybe your middle linebacker, okay? Maybe he's rotating over. But you've got to catch him in the right call on defense, which is why the offense running the ball, passing the ball, RPO, read option, okay? Because another thing the offense can do, and we haven't shown this, and it's not done as much as it used to be. Frost did this actually a few times. You put a guy in motion, and it can almost turn into, and I don't know that we're going to do this, to be honest with you, it can almost turn into, you got the read option here, the quarterback keeps it, and then you can have a pitch man. Now, again, I don't know that we're going to do that, but these are different things that the defense can possibly do and the offense can try to counter with. Now, if I'm being fully honest with you, if a defense is blitzing, so you can also have this defensive end do what we call a long scoop or a long stick where they move 2 gaps. Now, you got the read option. You can have a middle linebacker and an outside linebacker. Okay, you can have them blitzing, so to speak. Maybe he comes right off the end's butt and he comes out here. Well, you're going to kill the run play, but if you're blitzing that many guys, again, these guys are gone, you're going to leave zones open, and that's where the RPO action comes in. Now, the RPO is not an unbeatable play. It depends on the quarterback making the right read, but also the defense mixing up their calls so you don't know what's coming. Maybe the linebackers, okay, maybe they look like they're going to blitz. All right, the middle linebacker, maybe they show blitz before the snap, and then all of a sudden they bail back out, and the quarterback decides to try to throw the ball to the wide receiver on a slant, but he made the wrong read. It's all about disguising what you're doing on defense, keeping the defense off balance on offense so they don't know if you're running, if you're passing, whatever you're doing. There's all sorts of different things you can do. Football is the most violent chess game in the world, and it's about who can make the most consistent decisions under duress with the world watching at a fast pace. And that's what football is about. It's about all of these little chess pieces and mind games that coaches and players constantly play with each other back and forth. Now, again, there's a million different ways to do these things. I've literally discussed one slant route. I've literally discussed a read and one RPO option, and one RPO read, one read option read, and that's really it with multiple blocking fronts. There's so many different ways to do these things. It can be incredibly simple at its core, or it can be as complex as you want. Now, Nebraska, excuse the drawing again, but they did show a little bit of pistol formation. So you can do, again, you could have a tight end in here. You can do whatever. All right, you can go 2 tights if you want. Nebraska has done not a ton of that lately, but if you're going to do like base 23 zone left, so everyone's kind of zone blocking this way. So let's go ahead and get rid of that second tight end, and let's just say it's zone blocking this way. Okay, head up to play side, base 23 zone left, or whatever you want to call it. TJ's turning and handing it off to Emmett. All right, again, they're sending this end free. Why? Because you don't need to block him. Because the odds of him chasing Emmett back down from the backside aren't great. Also, he's going to have cut back. So if Emmett cuts back, he's got to be here. He's going to have boot in case the quarterback keeps it. And he's going to have reverse. Let's say the wide receiver were to get a handoff, boom. So he's got cut back right here, this end. He's got boot. If the quarterback keeps it, he's got to come out with him. And then he's got reverse. Okay, so the end has to slow play things. So the odds of him chasing down the back from the backside isn't great. And if he does, they're going to do boot, and they're going to do reverse, and they're going to hit their head on the goalpost. So this is one of the most difficult things an end has to do. Trust me, I'm well aware of this. So that's just regular base 23 zone left, whatever you want to call it. But now, okay, so I'm not going to draw the blocking, but let's say we do a boot. The end, boom. Now you've got to get back out here, especially on probably a lighter, faster player in TJ Lateef. And you've got to contain him. You got to go inside out with your angle, okay? And then you've got different routes that you can run as an offense. This one of my favorites is like a flood concept. So if you bring this tight end in motion, okay, he can all of a sudden go to the flat, all right? You can have another wide receiver that drags across the middle, and then this wide receiver can do a corner route. Not a very good corner route, but you get my point. So TJ would probably read this low to high. In other words, he's going to read the receiver that's closest to him first, flood. Then he's going to read the crosser in the middle too, and then his corner route third. Now you can call flood reverse, where you read the progression in opposite directions, where now the corner route is your number one read, the middle's still number two, but your flat route is your number three read. But unless you're looking to go deep, you would go short, medium, deep in that order of 1, 2, 3. So if you remember, the end has cutback. So if this tight end comes back and tries to kick you out, boom, there's a hole right here. There's a lane right here where the running back can hit. So anytime a tight end or somebody comes back at you, you have to spill or get underneath the block, the running back, to that outside linebacker that was there earlier. Well, now this tight end comes in motion, and then like I drew before, he goes to the flat. So all of a sudden, this end has to get underneath the tight end and then try to chase the quarterback on a boot, if that's what they're doing, because the running back would have gone this way. Let me redraw this here real quick. Okay, so the tight end goes in motion. He's going to go kick out the end. The end has to get underneath. Oh, wait, he fake blocks, hits the flat. You fake 23 zone left. TJ keeps the ball. Now the end is really from the inside out, and he's in a dynamic, hard way right here. So you've got the wide receiver, horrible drawing, going deep. You got the tight end in the flat, and you've got the wide receiver or whoever you want coming across the middle. Oh, by the way, let's say they're all covered. TJ Lateef can take off and run. And this end, it's a hard job, man. It's by far the most difficult thing I ever had to do as an end. So you've got 3 simple reads for the quarterback. 1, 2, 3. Now you can reverse those reads as we talked about, or you can just take off and run. This is the old school RPO right here. Those are 4 simple plays right there. Read option out of the shotgun, RPO out of the shotgun, base 23 zone left, or whatever they want to call it, and then your boot. And that doesn't even include a wide receiver reverse. That doesn't even include a quarterback throwback if you want to do something like that. It doesn't have to be complex. And that's a lot of what we saw. They kept it simple, they kept it easy, and they let TJ Lateef make quick reads, and that's exactly what he did. So ladies and gentlemen, I really just talked about 4 simple plays right there. You got the read option out of the shotgun, you got the RPO, run pass option read out of the shotgun. Then you can go to pistol, you got base 23 zone left or whatever you want to call it. Then you can do the bootleg right off of that. That's 4 simple plays with a whole bunch of really simple reads, which allows TJ Lateef to play fast. It's not complex reads, it's not hard, and he's always got the option to take off and run. You got a short pass, you got a deep pass, you got all these little things, and it puts the defense in an insane bind. Now the defense can do different things, from blitzing and other things of that nature. So again, If the end were to stun inside and a linebacker comes over the top on this boot, okay, you've got the run part taken care of, but what about this guy to the flat? What about the wide receiver going to the corner? Okay, maybe your corner, maybe you're running cover 3. Maybe the corner's got him taken care of. This wide receiver across in the flood where the zone was just vacated. Now, you will have people who rotate over in their coverage, but one of these guys is going to be open even if you take away the run. Now you can get beat with the pass. That's why this is such an effective, simplistic offense that Nebraska can put defenses in a real bind now with TJ Lateef's mobility and the dynamic that he brings to the table. I will say this, you noticed I drew up TJ Lateef almost always rolling out to his right. Now, quarterbacks can roll out to their right, or to their left, but if you're right-handed, it's much easier to throw on the run to your right. So Dana Holgorsen will call it both ways just so it's not predictable and obvious to the defense, but quarterbacks that are right-handed are much more comfortable rolling out to their right. So I will talk real quickly a bit about just like cover 3, cover 2, cover 4, and man beaters. So as you can see, we've got corner, free safety corner, basic 3 deep zone coverage. You got 4 guys underneath. All right, you got the strong safety coming over here to the curl flats right here. You got the linebackers in the hook and also the curl flats over here. How you beat 3 guys deep? All go. 4 verticals. So you got 4 verticals here. These guys have to release outside. These guys have to release outside. I mean, if you got 4 guys running verticals, you got 3 guys in the 3 deep coverage, somebody's going to be open. All right, in your typical cover 2 coverage, you're going to have 5 guys underneath if you're not blitzing anybody. You're going to have your flat players with the corners here. They're probably going to be pressing. You got your linebackers here with the hooks. And you got your strong safety and your free safety covering the 2, splitting the middle of the field deep. But what's open is this linebacker supposed to kind of drop to this area right here. But a lot of times that deep middle of the field is open. And that's how you can kind of beat cover 2. I'm going through these things just real quickly. Let's move on to the next coverage. So this next coverage is cover 4, basically. And there's a little bit of a man element to this without going too crazy into detail. This isn't actually a half bad run defense as well. It's better than some people would realize. But essentially, quarters, you're trying to prevent the deep ball over the top. You got your hook curls and things of that covered, but the flats are wide open. So if you can send somebody into the flat, right, maybe a wide receiver in motion over to the flats over here, the flats are really how you can beat cover 4. But cover 4 is about not getting beat deep. Now, when it comes to beating man coverage, I could draw that up as well, but essentially you want a bunch of crossing routes, you want a bunch of not pick rub routes where receivers and tight ends are running kind of right next to each other, crossing each other, and then defenders run into each other, crossing routes over the middle. Create real issues for man-to-man blitzes, or man-to-man coverages, I should say. Now, if it's cover 1, you're man-to-man across the board. You got 1 free safety deep in the middle of the field. You got 1 guy blitzing. If it's cover 0, you're trying to bring 1 more guy defensively on a blitz than the offense can pick up in their pass protection. So you got no safeties deep. Everyone's man-to-man across the board, and everyone else is blitzing, depending on how many guys they have blocking. And so again, those cross route screens are big on this. Obviously, they got nobody deep. If you got 2-man coverage, everybody's man-to-man across the board. You're light in the box. So you got 2 safeties deep. You probably got 7 men or lighter in the box, depending on the offensive formation. So it's more susceptible to being able to run the ball on these plays. You're going to get a lot more press coverage across the board if it's 2-man as well. I hope that kind of makes sense to you all. And I want to give another shout out to one of our sponsors. Shout out to Allen Capital Group. Check them out at allencapgroup.com. That's ALLENCAP group.com. They are a homegrown Nebraska business with offices in Grand Island, Ogallala, Scottsbluff, and Omaha. They will work to understand what is meaningful to your financial needs, wants, and wishes. They've personally helped me navigate my finances and my family's finances for over a decade. They know what they're doing. They're men of character, and they genuinely care about their clients. They help my wife and myself, puts our mind at ease, as finances can be stressful in life. Check them out at Allen Capital Group. They will help put your mind at ease. Again, that's Allen Capital Group. Next level solutions for next level needs. Now, you might say, what about a 3-3-5 defense or a 3-4 defense? Here's what I tell you. As a 3-4 end, I a lot of times, instead having contained, depending on the defensive call, I had the B gap. And then I still had to work out to contain if it was a boot or waggle. So it was even harder for me out of a 3-4 defense. I actually drew it a little bit simpler out of what would have been typically a 4-3 defense. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I've got almost 40 screenshots of things that I think you might find interesting. So let's light this candle. All right, UCLA football put out on X. We got corn on the menu tonight, 24 hours out. And Corrupt Donkey, give him a follow on X, said, you choked on your cob. I thought that was funny. Jake Sorensen, Lateef was excellent. Emmett Johnson continues to look like a first-team All-American. Take that, win and run. Somebody responded. Big Red Ed said, go pound sand, buddy. We all remember your tantrum last week. Jake Sorensen said, still haven't beaten a ranked team in 9 years. We take wins when we can get them. Rant stands. All right. James Perch on Twitter said, Nebraska was an underdog coming into the game with a true freshman quarterback on the road against a team coming off a bye week with a former 5-star quarterback who's caught fire in the past 4 games, going 3-1. This is a really solid win for Nebraska. Be proud, Husker Nation. And they got a response. Could the day have gone any better? Husker football wins. Nebraska volleyball sweeps. Husker basketball wins. Colorado football loses. Iowa football loses. There's more we're going to get to in a second beyond just that from this past weekend. Here we go. Nebraska volleyball hasn't dropped a set in 53 days. That last set they dropped was versus Creighton. 15 straight sweeps. We're witnessing complete domination from the Huskers and Danny Busboom's Kelly first season. 937 The Ticket said Husker Wrestling got a 33-3 win. That's a mollywhopping over number 23 Army. And by the way, one of my favorite celebrations. I tore my groin just looking at this picture, but he threw the bones. And Connor Asesian, Nebraska basketball player, says, new 3-point celebration tomorrow. I want to see that, Connor. I want to see you do the splits and throw the bones at the same time. I will not be doing a said thing. Nebraska men's basketball, they had a great win over Florida International. They're undefeated so far this year. Same with Nebraska women's basketball as well. And actually the men, if you didn't know, beat number 8 BYU in an exhibition game earlier this year as well. The Big Ten as a whole. Current number 1 ranked teams in the country across different sports. Ohio State, number 1 in football. By the way, Indiana, number 2. Purdue, number 1 in men's basketball. Volleyball, of course, Nebraska. Wrestling, number 1, Penn State. Also, number 2, Nebraska wrestling. Men's soccer, Maryland's number 1. Men's ice hockey, Michigan State is number 1. Dirk Chatelain had this to say. We got to share all the perspectives, ladies and gentlemen. If you determine that Raiola is still Nebraska's best option in 2026, fine. But I hope that tonight, he tweeted this out Saturday, at least redefines the target/standard for clean, quality offense. It hasn't been good enough this fall. Tonight it was. Lateef had a lot to do with it. It's only UCLA, but it's noticeable. Now everyone's going to have haters. So I thought that this sign was interesting. The sign outside this coffee shop and soup shop said, come in and try the worst coffee one woman on TripAdvisor has ever had in her life. Haters everywhere, ladies and gentlemen. At Huskers on Twitter, remember when we used to lead the world in negative turnover margin? This year we're +3 in turnover margin. We were -2 last year, -17 the year before, and you can keep going on down, but it's not that much fun. Did you know Nebraska had 0 turnovers throughout the entire game? 0 turnovers, 0 penalties at halftime, and they ended up with only 2 penalties the entire game versus UCLA. We are much more disciplined this year. All right, was Lincoln Riley disguising backup quarterback Sam Heward as the punter Bush League or Galaxy Brain? USC putting a backup quarterback in at punter in the same number as the actual punter is Bush League. It's legal. You don't like it, change the rules. Curt Cignetti. Indiana's 10-win seasons in 136 years without Curt Cignetti as a head coach is 0. Indiana 10-win seasons in 2 seasons with Curt Cignetti, 2. And what a catch this was, ladies and gentlemen. This might be the player of the year, the Indiana player getting his foot in on that game-winning touchdown catch versus Penn State. Here's another take. Northwestern overtakes Indiana to become the all-time FBS leader in losses following a 38-17 defeat to USC. Indiana had more losses as a football program than any other team in the country in the FBS. Now it's unfortunately Northwestern. Oh, I forgot about this. Jenny Taft, if you hadn't seen this, and I quote, Indiana's never won here, end quote, talking about at Penn State. Cignetti said, and I quote, this team has never played here, end quote. Well, now they've got a win up at Happy Valley. Unfortunately, Virginia did lose that game, but their playoff hopes are not dashed just yet. You can lose up to 8 games and still get in the college football playoff, it seems. Dr. Rob put this out on X. Do you think he got called for holding on this play when he was playing for the New York Giants? My gut says no. And of course, in his tweet, he said he saw no holding. He's an incredibly smart man, but he is an offensive lineman, so I get it. I'm a D lineman, so remember that as well. It's all about perspective, ladies and gentlemen. CJ Nikowski on X. My wife had an odd way of comforting my son after a rough pitching outing yesterday. Well, at least you still get to live in our house. When Dad pitched bad, we usually had to move. He was a major league pitcher, by the way. And this hits home with me. When I was a kid, bedtime was at 9 p.m. I couldn't wait to be a grown-up so I could go to bed anytime I wanted. Turns out it's still 9 p.m. In 136 years of Nebraska football, the Huskers have never improved their win total in 4 straight seasons until now. So this is good and this is what it is. But in 2022, we had 4 wins. The next year, 5. The next year, 6 wins, and in 2025, 7 wins with 3 more games yet to play. Some folks might call that progress. What would you call that? All right, ladies and gentlemen, my final thoughts. Is the ceiling higher these last 3 games than we originally had thought? Now, part of this is offensive. Part of this is defensive. Number one thing is going to be consistency. Okay, can we repeat what we just did on offense versus UCLA against Penn State? And can we do something similar against Iowa and in the bowl game? Or can we do it more than just once or twice? Now, when we play Penn State and Iowa, they're going to have film on us. But also, we have a bye week before Penn State, so we could throw a few more wrinkles in without getting crazy. We're also going to be fresher. You look at Iowa before we play them, they just lost a close game, heartbreaker at home to Oregon. Then they play USC. Okay, and then it's a short week and they play us, so they won't have a whole lot of prep time while we should be a little bit fresher coming off a bye week. You look at Penn State, they will have just played Ohio State, number 1 in the country, Indiana, number 2 in the country. They will have also played top 20 team, at least I haven't seen the rankings as the time I record this, but the last time I saw, Iowa obviously lost to Oregon, but they were a top 20 team in the country, and a team that used to be one of their rivals. They used to end their season playing Michigan State every week. All right, before they they used to play Michigan State to end their season every year for a while, going not that long ago, and before they play us. So we're going to play 2 teams where we should be relatively fresh, and they've had some challenging, difficult games. Now, the other part of this is, remember when Colin Kaepernick and RG3 kind of took over the league with the read option, and then defenses adjusted. Defenses are going to adjust to what we're doing, but there's not a lot of time. They don't have a whole off season like they did in the NFL. Also, this isn't the NFL. The option football has been successful in college football for over 100 years. All right. To me, whether our ceiling is higher or not is going to come down to consistency, execution, also coaching adjustments, game planning, play calling, being on par like it was going into UCLA. But it's about the continued improvement that we need to have, development and growth. Consistency, and that will lead to consistency for our teams and continued improvement while other teams try to adjust to what we're doing and adapt to us. And if we're able to continue to keep improving, growing, getting better, and find consistency, not just make it a one-off game offensively versus the Bruins, that will lead to a higher ceiling for Nebraska for the rest of this season. The other part of this is the run defense. Penn State has the most talented backfield in the country, either them or Notre Dame. Like they've got Nate Singleton, Katron Allen at Penn State, the most talented backfield in the country, I think, even though they haven't been the best team so far this year. Also, Iowa's going to run the football. How do we do stopping the run when it comes to the defensive side of the ball? All right, ladies and gentlemen, check out these fan questions. They're brought to you by Husker Auto Group. Check them out, huskerautogroup.com. You can also follow me on the social medias, X, TikTok, and Facebook. Here are my questions for you fine folks. Let me know the answer in the comments. All right, did you enjoy the X's and O's breakdown that we did in this video? All right, number 2, do you think Nebraska's ceiling is higher these last 3 games than we may have thought it was going into the UCLA game? You can just simply say yes or no. And will Nebraska make a bowl game in Florida? They'd probably have to win at least 8 if not 9 games in order to do so. Will Nebraska be playing a bowl game in Florida? Go Big Red Nose. Remember to throw the bug.